Friends, don't let friends operate a Cisco device without the use of AAA. AAA, of course, stands for, in this case, authentication, authorization, and accounting, not the Automobile Association of America, which, by the way, might be a good idea as well. In this nugget, we'll explore one way in which we can use AAA, and that's just to rely on the local user accounts database we can set up on your device. Now, you're going to have lots of bonuses in this particular course, and one of those bonuses is I'll demonstrate how we would use various practice lab topologies. You're so lucky. You have so many options when it comes to practicing with your Cisco technologies for the mastery of your CCIE. I'm super jealous. When I was pursuing my CCIE a decade ago, actually longer than that, I had like one option, and that was to purchase equipment and set it up in my home. And then rental gear started to show up. Great. But it was still physical gear. I couldn't be on an airplane, for instance, with no internet connectivity and fire up GNS3 like we're doing here and practice with the information that I'm conveying in this particular course. So speaking of GNS3, that's what I chose for this particular nugget. I'll be switching from many different options for you just to give you a sense of them. So we build a quick topology here of just R1 and R2 connected through a hub. And we will practice with AAA utilizing the local database. By the way, if you need help with GNS3, just search our site for GNS3 and you'll find great courses covering the fundamentals and most advanced features of this tool. So what's going on with a Cisco device by default when it comes to authentication? And that is, who is it that's trying to get on the device? Well, it's not good. Here we are at the R1 console port, thanks to GNS3, and I hit enter, and we're in. And we're in the privileged mode where we can begin configuring this device. If I do a show run, we see that there is the command no AAA new model. The AAA new model command is not something for like Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. No, it's for the authentication, authorization, and accounting services that can be put in place on this particular device. Now, we are starting with a nugget on AAA, and we're actually starting with something that's very dangerous here. This is a way in which to fail your exam in the blink of an eye. And I'm talking about the lab exam, obviously. You see, when you start messing with how you can get into, how you can authenticate against your Cisco devices securely, you're entering an area where if you do it incorrectly per the proctor's instructions, you could lock them out. They will spend zero time breaking that. So even if there's an easy way for them to get in via some back door, they would never do it. If you lock them out of your device or devices, you fail your exam. So when we are messing with things like AAA, we want to be extremely careful in the lab environment. So how do we make sure we don't fail the exam with one really easy keystroke? Well, we follow their rules explicitly. They're probably going to have you turn on AAA new model. And that is a really good idea. And that's a production type thing that we would do. We would always want to rely on AAA. Now they'll have you do something interesting, at least for this particular nugget, and that is be non-scalable. Set up a local username database that you're going to use for authentication into the device. How do we do this? We say username. I'll say John S. Notice the mixed case. So that's John and then uppercase S. Actually, to be specific, it's an uppercase J and an uppercase S. And yes, that's my brother John Sequeira that I always use in examples. And then the password. All right, so we have created a John S. user account in the local database. By the way, we could have done that completely independent of setting up this AAA new model, but we enacted the AAA methodology on this device for specific purposes of using the local database. So now what we say is AAA authentication, and you can use your context-sensitive help here. For logins, we want a default method. This will be the method for no matter how a user is trying to get into the device. We can use context-sensitive help here, and we could say we want it to be local and we want it to be case-sensitive. Notice you could use another method beyond that. How this works is if the first method is unavailable for any reason, it would go to the next method. This becomes really important in the next nugget where we discuss AAA when you're not using the local database. So maybe you have some remote TACAX Plus database, you can't get to it, it's unavailable, then you would go to a fallback method. In our case, it makes no sense because we want the default to be the local case-sensitive database. So we've set up a default for any way into this device. Now let's set up what will be an exception. We'll say AAA authentication, just as we did before. We'll say for logins, this time we'll say my VTY, and we will say, let's just use the local line password that's set up on that particular line. So now we'll say line VTY 0 to 4. We'll say password is Cisco, and we'll say login authentication is going to be handled by the myVTY methodology that we set up. It's that simple. So now we'll end this configuration, we'll exit the device, and the first thing we'll test is the default methodology via the console port. That would be John S, case sensitive, Cisco, and we're in. Now let's try and telnet to this device, and it should be a simple password of Cisco for the particular telnet access. So here we are on a neighboring device, and we'll say telnet to the address of that system, and we are asked for a simple password. So no username and password combination, because here we have a specific methodology set for the VTY lines that says just use the line password that is configured. If you have a specific methodology configured under a specific interface, it overrides the default methodology that you selected. So AAA with the local database, really simple, but potentially super dangerous. Think about this. You configure it like just slightly incorrect, like they say John S all lowercase, you do it all uppercase, you fail your lab exam. By the way, from a production standpoint, obviously this is critical. We'll always use AAA, and typically we want it to be scalable. So I hope you'll join me in the nugget where we take AAA and expound upon it and make it scalable with external authentication sources. I sure hope this nugget was informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.